the fountain of youth served up in a cocktail of cosmetic procedures.
This is Jenna Ortega, an actress who used to look like this.
This trend that I am noticing is not only alarming, but disturbing.
Buccal fat removal.
Okay, picture this. It's March 2026 on a massive Hollywood red carpet. Cameras flashing like crazy. One of the most iconic women we've all grown up loving steps out, and the whole internet freezes. Her warm, familiar face, it's gone. Replaced by something pulled tight, missing that softness we adored. Fans are whispering, "I don't even recognize her anymore." Girl, does that hit you like it hit me? This isn't just one star. It's happening to face after face at awards shows and premieres, all from one quick fix procedure promising a snatched jawline. And now in 2026, we're seeing the heartbreaking reality. But wait, almost none of them will admit it. Today, we're spilling on all 29. We have 29 incredible stories to get through today. If you end up learning something new or seeing this trend in a completely different light by the end of this video, I'd love it if you considered subscribing. All right, let's get into number 29. Okay, close your eyes for a second and think about Demi Moore in Ghost. That perfect face, that soft fullness, that warmth that made the whole world fall in love with her. She spent decades as one of the most beautiful women on the planet. And honestly, up until very recently, she still had it. She won a Screen Actors Guild Award in 2025 for The Substance, a movie about a woman destroying herself chasing youth. Which, I mean, the irony of that is genuinely something we need to talk about. But then came March 2026, the Actor Awards red carpet. She arrived in a breathtaking Schiaparelli gown with 95 carats of Harry Winston diamonds. And within minutes of that red carpet video being shared by Elle magazine, the comment sections exploded. Because fans compared her current face to her Oscars look from just 1 year earlier and called her almost unrecognizable. Plastic surgeon Dr. Osman Bashir Tahir went to Instagram specifically to analyze what he was seeing and said publicly that she appears to have had at least 2 facelifts, and that during one of those procedures, her buccal fat pad was removed. He said if she came to him, he would start by dissolving her fillers and then perform fat grafting to gently restore what had been lost. And here's the clinical reason why this is so devastating, specifically on someone in their 60s. By that point in life, skin elasticity is already naturally reduced. The face is already gradually losing volume on its own. When you remove the one remaining pocket that was still providing internal support, you accelerate all of that change at once. Demi herself has previously talked about the brutal Hollywood pressure to maintain a certain weight, losing 20 pounds during filming, and yet even she could not escape the pull of this trend. Fans online simply said she looked unrecognizable, and one comment that broke a lot of people's hearts said she was so beautiful. Why wasn't that enough? Why, indeed.
You know what, when I work out, I love to work out. Like, I train and I work out hard for 2 hours.
Now, for the visual side of this trend, the face that young women kept bringing into clinics saying, "I want to look like her," that is Bella Hadid, and her story is fascinating and also genuinely complicated.
I never, growing up, had anything designer. You know, my mom wouldn't let me. I think I got my first pair of...
Because Bella walked into the modeling world as a teenager with soft, wide cheeks, a slightly fuller lower face, the kind of naturally youthful look that most of us would treasure, and then her face changed completely into this razor-sharp, hyper-angular structure that every fashion house in the world went wild for. When asked about it, Bella has consistently said it is puberty, weight loss, and face tape. And I want to be completely fair here, because all of those things can absolutely change a face. But here is what keeps coming up. Dr. Matthew Schulman, a board-certified plastic surgeon, stated publicly that her jawline being more defined and her cheeks being less full could absolutely be achieved with buccal fat reduction. And other experts point out that the specific location and nature of the change in her mid-face is something very particular that weight loss alone does not typically produce. But seriously, what really matters about Bella's story is the effect. She became the face that defined this entire trend, the face that millions of women around the world looked at and said, "I want that." And the tragic thing that surgeons keep pointing out is this. Even if her results came from the rarest possible combination of genetics and whatever procedures she may or may not have had, that look cannot be replicated on most human faces. Because without that specific underlying bone structure, the result is not Bella Hadid. It is just a face missing something that used to be there. And that is a lesson that thousands of regular women are still learning right now, painfully, in 2026. And then there is Lea Michele, who played Rachel Berry on Glee, the most ambitious, most determined, most bright-eyed young woman on television for 6 years. And then she got the role she had literally dreamed about her entire life, Fanny Bryce in Funny Girl on Broadway. standing ovations every single night. It should have been the most triumphant chapter of her career. And then in late 2022, she posted a selfie, and plastic surgeons across social media could not stop talking about it. Dr. Richard Swift and Dr. Arthur Yu both analyzed the photos publicly and said the same thing. The specific sudden change in her lower face was not consistent with weight loss. It was too targeted, too localized, and Twitter had one of its most quotable collective reactions. Someone wrote, "What the is Buccal fat? How are they still inventing new flaws for us?" And that comment went absolutely viral because it captured what so many people were feeling. Like, we just found out we have a body part, and apparently we are supposed to want it removed? Lea has said nothing, not a confirmation, not a denial. She has let the photos exist in total silence. And Reddit users have been particularly pointed about this one, with one comment saying, "She already had sharp cheekbones. She really did not need to do this." And that is what makes her case such a vivid cautionary tale for educators in the aesthetic world. Because when you remove this fat from a face that is already naturally moving toward its late 30s and 40s, a face that was already striking and defined, what you get is something that reads as more mature than the person's actual age. Something that aged a face that did not need to age faster. And that is the exact thing this whole conversation is about. This next chapter is the one that honestly gets me the most emotional, because there is something uniquely heartbreaking about watching someone very young erase the exact features that made the world fall in love with them. And I really do say this with so much compassion, because I understand the pressure, but the results speak for themselves. Okay, so you have to remember who Dove Cameron was. She was literally two people on Disney Channel. She played twins, soft, round-faced, completely adorable. The definition of girl next door energy. She was in the Descendants franchise. She was the person young girls wanted to be. And that specific warmth, that cherubic fullness in her face, that was a huge part of her appeal. And then by her late 20s, the face you see at Paris Fashion Week 2025 and 2026 looks like it belongs to someone completely different. Dr. Gary Linkoff, who has publicly analyzed her transformation, pointed to buccal fat removal as the primary driver of what he called the sudden dramatic change in her lower face. She has never confirmed anything. And here's the part that really got fans talking. Dove Cameron had been pretty vocal about body positivity and self-acceptance, messaging this to fan base who idolized her. And one Reddit comment that got thousands of upvotes said, "She promotes body positivity, but she's gotten so much work done that I'm on the verge of unfollowing, and for someone whose entire brand was warmth and realness, that shift is a really significant loss." Wait till you hear about this one, because the conversation around Jenna Ortega's face took on a life of its own in 2025. She was cast as Wednesday Addams because of a very specific combination of features: wide, dark eyes, a petite frame, and this particular soft roundness to her cheeks that made the character feel both haunting and somehow innocent at the same time. It was genuinely perfect casting. And then fans started noticing changes. Beauty analyst Lauryn Hill and various other commentators created content specifically analyzing her cheek area in her most recent appearances. Defenders said it was contouring, lighting, natural changes, but a Reddit thread after her March 2026 Actor Awards appearance, where she arrived in a stunning Christian Cowan gown, became one of the most engaged buccal fat discussions of the year. Someone wrote, "Buccal fat removal will age like milk, as it should." And another comment that I just could not stop thinking about said, "I saw it on Reddit too. Buccal fat removal is definitely the trend. I've known people who only have to fluctuate a few pounds to look like this." She has never confirmed a single thing, but ethical surgeons consistently point out that performing this procedure on anyone in their early 20s is one of the highest risk scenarios, because the face at 22 simply cannot predict what the face at 42 will need.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy. Can you imagine being described in a scientific facial symmetry study as one of the most uniquely beautiful women in the world? And the thing that made her uniquely beautiful was specifically the parts of her face that did not fit the conventional template. The wide-set eyes, that slightly otherworldly quality, and those soft, full, almost luminous cheeks that gave her this completely magical quality on screen in The Queen's Gambit. That is what made audiences absolutely obsess over her. Dr. Gary Linkoff analyzed her publicly and noted that the specific area where buccal fat lives in her face appears to have changed in a way more consistent with removal than with simple aging or weight fluctuation. And fans on Reddit have been direct about how they feel about it. One comment that circulates constantly says, "Buccal fat removal took someone one of a kind and turned her into every other Hollywood face," because that is the real loss here. She was irreplaceable, and something irreplaceable seems to be gone. Now, I want you to stop and really think about this. We have already talked about 4 people, and not one of them was a Disney star originally. Wait, actually 2 of them were. And here's the thing that I find fascinating and also a little chilling, because Disney produces some of the most recognizable, most beloved faces in entertainment, faces that whole generations grow up with. And so many of those faces have changed in this specific way, which tells you something about the pressure that exists even after you leave that world. Miley Cyrus had this bright, wide, expressive face as Hannah Montana. Full cheeks, a huge grin, this vibrant energy that literally lit up a room. And then she reinvented herself a dozen times, which was her right. But what Dr. Norman Rowe and Dr. Sam Fuller have both noted publicly is that her cheeks became sharply different, without a corresponding dramatic change in her overall body weight. And that specific detail is the clinical marker that something surgical may have happened in that location. She has never said a word about it. And what makes her case particularly interesting is what experts say happened when whatever changed in her face met her dental work. Because Miley also got a significant lip lift and very large new veneers. And surgeons explain that when internal facial structure changes and the dental volume simultaneously increases, the face ends up in this slightly strained resting position that registers as older and less natural. Now we are getting into territory where I really need you to take a breath. Because these are not just famous people. These are people whose faces are part of cultural history. And what has happened to those faces has left fans genuinely stunned. Here is an interesting one, because Megan Fox is actually one of the more transparent celebrities about her cosmetic work. She went on record listing everything she has had done: rhinoplasty, Botox.
When I was 21 or 22, I had them redone after.
She was shockingly candid, and she specifically said no buccal fat removal. Flat out denied it in a People interview where she said she was being 100% transparent. But here is what keeps getting surgeons' attention. Her baseline face from the Transformers era had a natural, subtle fullness that perfectly balanced her strong bone structure, and that fullness is now completely gone. Dr. Jennifer Emmett, analyzing her recent 2026 appearances, pointed to specific changes consistent with significant contouring work. Other analysts keep returning to the particular shadow below her cheekbones. Fans on Reddit simply said, "Hopefully this buccal fat removal trend dies quickly. It's really easy to spot." And another comment that honestly made me a little sad: she walked into Hollywood with a biologically perfect face and changed it. Because whatever happened, the result is that the Megan Fox the world fell in love with in 2007 does not look quite like herself anymore. And whatever procedure or combination of procedures caused that, the loss feels real. Oh, this one genuinely worries people, because Ariana Grande, in her Cat Valentine days on Victorious, had this specific cherubic baby face that was absolutely part of her brand. Round cheeks, big eyes, that ageless quality. And then the Wicked promotion era happened, and fans compared photos side by side and went completely wild. Nicki Swift published a detailed analysis in February 2026, noting that Ariana's face shows the hallmark changes associated with significant weight loss combined with structural facial changes, specifically in the temple area and mid-cheek zone. And Bored Panda covered the viral comparison posts that showed the dramatic before and after, with one commenter writing, "It's a global pandemic," referring to this specific trend among Hollywood women. Ariana has addressed the weight loss conversation directly, saying in an April 2023 TikTok that the version of her people consider healthy was actually her unhealthiest. And that is completely valid and deserves compassion. But here is what fans cannot reconcile. The specific location and nature of the change in her face goes beyond what weight loss alone typically produces. She has admitted to Botox and previously fillers, but buccal fat removal has never been confirmed. And one fan comment that has been shared thousands of times says, "Y'all talking about Wicked healed her, but this transformation looks like it took away all her natural vibrance." And I do not think that was meant cruelly. I think it was said with genuine worry. Now, Hailey Bieber is a fascinating case because she is one of the people who has actually spoken about this directly, and her position is clear. She built an entire beauty brand road around the idea of glowing natural skin.
I am going to start off with our Pineapple Refresh Cleanser. I am so excited.
She has said she has never touched her face, and yet the before and after shots of her jawline and cheek area have been circulating online constantly. New York City plastic surgeon Dr. Darren Smith noted publicly that the decrease in the lower facial fullness in Hailey's face might have been achieved with a buccal fat pad excision. She has consistently denied this. On the other end, other experts say the change is entirely explainable through natural aging, jaw Botox, which she has admitted to, an excellent makeup technique. And honestly, the jury is genuinely out. But what makes her presence in this conversation so significant is her influence. Hailey Bieber is one of the most copied beauty figures in the world right now. Her glazed donut skin, her lip combo, her whole vibe, and millions of young women are looking at her face and trying to figure out what is natural versus what might be engineered, and if any part of that face required a permanent surgical procedure. That is information that matters for those young women. You know what I think about a lot? The fact that reality TV is supposed to be relatable. These are regular people, right? That is literally the whole premise. And yet the pressure on women in that world to look a certain way is sometimes even more brutal than traditional Hollywood, because the cameras are on you all the time and the audience feels like they own you. Let's just take a moment and acknowledge what Khloé Kardashian actually went through. This is a woman who was publicly, openly, cruelly mocked by media for the way she looked for over a decade. Magazine covers, late-night hosts, tabloids, years of it. And she clearly absorbed all of that deeply. So whatever choices she has made about her appearance, they did not happen in a vacuum. They happened under enormous sustained public cruelty. And now in 2026, surgical experts consistently point to her as one of the most clear examples of buccal fat removal, combined with documented weight loss, noting that the specific change directly below her cheekbones does not follow normal physiological weight reduction patterns. She has admitted to one nose job and a facial tumor removal, and attributes everything else to contouring and weight loss. And fans have reached a real collective exhaustion with that explanation. One widely shared comment simply says, "The Kardashians have gaslit an entire generation about what natural weight loss looks like." And here is what matters beyond just her. She has over 300 million followers. When she attributes a clearly changed result to diet and makeup, consistently, for years, she is telling 300 million people that this is achievable without surgery. And it is not. And the women trying to achieve it through diet alone are going to be frustrated and confused and may end up in a surgeon's office trying to get there.
She's a beautiful actress, but she's decided to completely change her face.
This whole story. Erin Moriarty was cast as Starlight in The Boys, specifically because of her look. Wide, warm, bright face. That perfect girl next door quality. And Starlight, as a character, is literally supposed to be the symbol of goodness. And the casting was completely perfect. And then between seasons, her face changed noticeably. And the internet noticed almost immediately. And then Megyn Kelly made a whole segment about it.
I really want to get in the heads of these young girls and say, please don't do this.
Which honestly was pretty harsh, regardless of what the truth is. And what happened next was actually remarkable. Erin Moriarty came onto social media absolutely furious. She said the accusations were disgustingly false, that changes in her face were from makeup and stress. Her Boys co-stars rallied in the comments to support her, and she was clearly genuinely distressed by the whole thing. And then she stepped back from social media entirely for a while. Later, she wrote something really moving, that she had opened a vein for this role, and that the kind of public scrutiny she experienced is exactly what Starlight, her character, would have fought against. And she is right. Whatever the truth is about her face, the conversation around it was genuinely cruel, and she deserved so much better than what she got.
I know everybody thinks I took Ozempic. I did not take Ozempic. I don't know where that came from.
And then there is Kelly, who had one of the most alarming public moments of 2026. She appeared at the Brit Awards just weeks after losing her father, Ozzy. She was clearly grieving, and the internet was not kind at all. Kelly has denied buccal fat removal completely. She says it is from her gastric sleeve procedure, cutting sugar and carbs, and TMJ Botox.
I cut out sugar and carbohydrates, and I rapidly lost weight.
Injections she got to treat jaw clenching, which she says slimmed her lower face significantly, and doctors confirm that jaw Botox absolutely can change the lower face. But a clinical analysis of her 2026 Brit Awards photos noted that the specific targeted change in her mid-cheek area is difficult to explain entirely through those factors alone. And fan reactions ranged from genuinely alarmed to sadly cruel. Someone wrote on Reddit about a grieving daughter who had just lost her father. Ozempic face plus buccal fat removal plus veneers. And Kelly responded to her critics the way Kelly always does, by telling them exactly where they could go.
Most of the comments are coming from grown women, and it's absolutely devastating.
And honestly, good for her, because what kind of conversation are we having when we analyze a grieving woman's cheekbones? Now, Amelia Gray Hamlin is interesting because her story came with a very specific dramatic twist. She is 24 years old. She is the daughter of Lisa Rinna, who has her own very public cosmetic surgery history.
You've been really public about plastic surgery.
Because there's a taboo. You're a bad person.
if you do it.
And Reddit users have been blunt about the context. With a mom like Lisa Rinna, this poor girl didn't stand a chance. Not because of anything Amelia did wrong, but because the environment she grew up in normalized heavy cosmetic intervention from a young age. In January 2026, a cosmetic injector publicly claimed Amelia had undergone buccal fat removal along with other procedures. And Amelia came out swinging on Instagram. She called it fake news. She said she had only ever had a temporary skin booster in her lips. She was forceful, specific, and clearly furious. And the public largely supported her. Fans called the original claims invasive and unwarranted. What we are left with is genuinely unclear. But what surgeons consistently emphasize about cases like hers, whatever the actual cause of any visible change, is that performing irreversible fat extraction on someone in their very early 20s is extremely high-risk territory, because the face at 24 does not predict what the face at 44 will need, and that gap is where the long-term consequences live. Now this chapter is the one where things get really interesting, because for some of the people on this list, whatever may have happened with their faces was not happening in isolation. It was colliding with other big changes, weight loss medications, major weight loss, other procedures. And when those things combine, doctors say the result can be something that goes much further than anyone intended. Mila Kunis had one of the most famous heart-shaped faces in Hollywood for 25 years. Wide, expressive eyes, soft, full cheeks. That combination was so specifically hers. That 70s show fans, Black Swan fans, generations of people who grew up watching her, have looked at recent photos and felt something shift. Dr. Lavi Bitt Ackerman specifically used Mila as a primary example when analyzing this trend, noting that her cheeks appearing dramatically slimmer created a contrast with her cheekbones that he described as clinically more consistent with surgical removal than with gradual aging. She has said nothing publicly, and the comment that fans keep sharing, one that is actually medically accurate, says, "Removing cheek fat makes no sense because you lose it naturally as you age anyway. Why speed it up?" That is exactly right. The face naturally loses volume over decades. The buccal fat pad is one of the last things to go. It is literally built to last. When you remove it surgically in your 30s, you are essentially fast-forwarding your face's aging clock by a significant number of years. Okay, Margot Robbie's case is the most subtle on this entire list, and in some ways it is the most instructive, because she walked the Wuthering Heights premiere in February 2026, looking genuinely, undeniably stunning. And yet eagle-eyed fans in the Reddit comments for that appearance noticed something. One commenter wrote, "She had buccal fat removal. Once celebrities get it, they all look like that. It ages them." And what is striking about that comment is that Margot still looked great. So why does it matter? Top aesthetic surgeons believe she may have had a very conservative, partial extraction, not the full aggressive removal seen in others on this list. And that is exactly why it matters. Because her results create the false impression that this is a safe, subtle, easily controllable procedure. They create the illusion that you can just take a little bit and everything will look naturally refined. But what surgeons emphasize is that Margot carries extraordinarily rare pre-existing bone structure. Her face can support the loss of that cushioning in a way that most faces simply cannot.
Margot Robbie, she has a natural eyebrow arch, and the lateral canthus of her eye is elevated.
And when regular women look at her result and think they can replicate it, they are setting themselves up for a completely different outcome. Her photos effectively do not come with that warning label.
You do 100 push-ups a day, you will be in good shape.
That's true.
And I worked my way up, and now I do that every day.
Now, Jonah Hill's weight loss journey has been genuinely inspiring on a lot of levels. He talked about it openly, documented it, was clearly doing real meaningful work, and his face changed significantly as a result. But surgical experts have noted that the specific hollowing in his lower cheeks went beyond what overall body weight loss typically produces. Too targeted, too architectural in a particular location. He has never confirmed anything about his face, but his story perfectly illustrates what doctors call the weight loss combination trap. When you lose a very significant amount of weight, your face already loses some of its natural volume. And if buccal fat extraction then removes the very last internal cushioning that remained, the face loses its final structural support. Doctors describe this as accelerating visible aging by years in a very short period. The face goes from losing weight to looking structurally depleted, and that is a very different thing. And then there is Zac Efron, and his explanation for the dramatic change in his face is one of the most discussed celebrity cosmetic stories of the last few years. Because in 2022, Zac told Men's Health that the structural changes happened after he shattered his jaw in a 2013 home accident, and that his masseter muscles compensated over time. And while that is a real medical thing that can happen, Dr. Gary Linkoff's comprehensive timeline analysis has pointed to buccal fat removal as the likely additional mechanism behind the specific concavity in his mid-face.
At the age of 34, this is when we're seeing more significant changes to his face. The cheeks, the jawline, all look more refined.
And fans on Reddit have been direct. He had buccal fat removal. I miss his natural, softer looks. Because here's the thing about Zac Efron that people keep saying. He was the teen heartthrob for a generation specifically because he looked warm and bright and accessible. And whatever happened to his face since then, it looks hard in a way that his face never used to look. And a lot of his original fans find that genuinely sad. Okay, we are in the final chapter, and this one has the most complicated mix of stories, because some of these are genuine denials with real reasons behind them, and some of them are the kind of silence that speaks very loudly. And one of them is a story that is actually an important lesson in being more careful about how we talk about people's faces at all. And speaking of people who deserve so much compassion, Demi Lovato, who has been through genuinely so much, publicly, painfully, bravely through so much, and who still shows up, still creates, still talks honestly about her journey with addiction and recovery and all of it.
I think that when you're in so much pain that the consequences don't matter to you.
Aesthetic professionals have pointed to her lower face in recent 2025 and 2026 Fashion Week appearances as showing changes consistent with buccal fat removal, too localized to be explained purely by the history of weight fluctuation she has documented publicly. She has never said a word about it. And after her appearance at the Coperni fashion show, Reddit users reacted with a comment that really captured the mood. This is one of the most depressing plastic surgery trends of the last decade, hollowing out beautiful faces everywhere. And Demi's face was cited specifically because this is someone who spent years speaking beautifully and bravely about loving your body.
Huge thing for me has been body acceptance. We hear the terms body positivity all the time.
And to see her face change in this particular permanent way, it feels like a contradiction that saddens the people who love her. Okay, Zoe Kravitz is the case that surgeons use as the most important warning for regular consumers. And here is why. Dr. Richard Swift specifically cited her as an example of the procedure looking visually successful, noting that the submolar area of her face is now really well defined. And in her specific case, it does look striking. She has extraordinary pre-existing bone structure. Her face can carry this. But here's the trap. When Zoe's result looks striking, women who do not have her specific rare bone structure look at those photos and believe the procedure will do the same for them, and it will not. It physically cannot produce the same result on a face that does not have that underlying skeletal support. For most people, according to Dr. Ackerman, this procedure ends up making them look older, less natural, and overly worked. Zoe is effectively one of the only people whose bone structure can carry this look at all. The problem is, her photos look like an advertisement. An advertisement should always come with fine print.
I was down to 100 pounds recently, and it was really, really scary.
Emily Ratajkowski came to fame in that Robin Thicke music video, then in Gone Girl, then built this whole intelligent public persona around body autonomy and feminism and her book My Body. And she has actually addressed cosmetic rumors directly, saying in a Refinery 29 interview that she has not had injectables or surgeries. Though she does like Botox, which she got for the first time at 27. She has been pretty candid. And yet fan analysis of her recent photos compared to her early career images has been intense and consistent. One commenter wrote, "I can't stand her new cheekbones combined with the change in her cheeks. It's too much and now she looks 50. She was so perfect before. Why did she do this?" And another said, "All of these celebrities are going to regret their buccal fat removal so much in a few years." Emily has not confirmed the procedure, but what her story shows us is that even women who have publicly spoken about body autonomy and pushed back against beauty standards are not immune to the pressures that exist in this industry. The pressure is just that relentless.
How could you lose weight?
I know. That's what I said to him. I was like, well, I am skinny.
Wait, because I need you to notice something. Almost everyone on this list so far has been a woman, and that is not an accident. The pressure of beauty standards in Hollywood has historically fallen hardest on women. But here is where it gets interesting, because buccal fat removal is increasingly happening to men too. And Timothée Chalamet is the most discussed male example of this entire conversation. During the Wonka promotional tour in 2023, his appearance sparked major conversation. Fans on X started the comment, "Oh my God, Chalamet got the buccal fat surgery. Why are they all doing this? Stop it, Hollywood. Seriously." That tweet went viral. Speculation peaked when fans did side-by-side comparisons, showing his face significantly more angular than his earlier career years. He has never addressed it directly. And look, some people argue his whole thing has always been sharp cheekbones. But the timing of the Wonka press circuit and the specific nature of what people were seeing convinced a significant portion of the internet that even the young men Hollywood deems golden are not exempt from this pressure. And that is a genuinely important point. This is not a women's issue. This is a Hollywood issue, and it is hurting everyone. And here is the most subtle and honestly most dangerous case on this list. Dangerous not medically, but dangerous in terms of influence. Because Sabrina Carpenter is 26 years old, she is the biggest pop star in the world right now. And if she did have a conservative buccal fat extraction, her results look very natural, very soft, very much like she could just naturally look that way. Dr. Gary Linkoff and Dr. Somji have both analyzed her 2025 and 2026 appearances, Grammys, Met Gala, tour stages, and noted that the jawline and lower cheek changes are consistent with a conservative, careful extraction balanced with very well-placed fillers above. She attributes everything to sunscreen and skincare. And because it is subtle, because she still looks genuinely beautiful and soft, millions of young fans are looking at her face and thinking that is just what she naturally looks like at 26. And it is not. Dr. Linkoff said it himself. The engineering is invisible, and that makes it the most dangerous standard of all, because it is the one nobody realizes they are trying to meet. Now, Olivia Culpo actually did something pretty remarkable. She got on TikTok and walked through everything she has ever had done. She said she has had Botox, including in her jaw at one point to slim it, which she stopped, and lip fillers.
Have never had plastic surgery. I don't judge anybody that has, but things in my comments.
And she specifically denied buccal fat removal. She said she has never touched her cheeks surgically, and fans largely believed her, praising her for being specific and direct. But here's the thing, the fact that jaw Botox can slim the lower face in a way that looks almost identical to this procedure is something most people do not know. Olivia accidentally became a great teachable example that not every dramatic lower face change requires a scalpel. The change can sometimes come from injectable treatments that people do not even think of as significant, and her willingness to name everything clearly is something a lot of people on this list chose not to do, which is her right, but it matters. Okay, now this one I want to handle very carefully and with a lot of love, because Sarah Hyland has kidney dysplasia. She has had 2 kidney transplants. Her body has spent years fighting to survive. And the medications she has taken cause facial changes, puffiness, swelling, then loss of that puffiness when doses change. And when outlets started analyzing her appearance and speculating about buccal fat removal, she responded in a way that I think is one of the most powerful celebrity responses to this kind of speculation ever. She wrote, "My face has been altered by life-saving medication." And she told the publication to take their journalism and use it for some good. And the thing that makes her story essential in this conversation, she said directly that publications like this are the reason girls feel the need to alter their faces. And you know what? She is not wrong. When we analyze a woman's cheekbones without knowing what that woman is going through privately, we contribute to exactly the culture that is driving this entire trend in the first place. Now, Bobby Norris is one of only 2 people on this entire countdown who actually confirmed the procedure. He was on TOWIE, The Only Way is Essex, for years. And in August 2024, he posted a 6-week post-op update on Instagram and said directly, "I've had my buccal fat removed from my cheeks." He also had chin liposuction at the same time. He was open about it. He showed the recovery process. He documented the whole thing. And here's the fascinating thing about what happened afterward. Fans online noticed that he appeared to have replaced some of the lost volume with fillers after the procedure, which is itself a whole conversation. Surgeons are now seeing patients who remove their buccal fat and then immediately try to partially replace the volume with injectable fillers to prevent looking too changed. And Dr. Ackerman has spoken about this specifically. He calls it chasing your own face. You remove the fat, then you filler to replace some of it, then as the filler migrates or dissolves, the face looks strange in a new way. Bobby was open and honest about his procedure, which is more than most people on this list did. And the internet's reaction, people noticing the subsequent filler use, illustrates perfectly the complicated cycle that this procedure can set off. And now, Jennifer Aniston. She is 57 years old. She built her entire public persona around looking naturally beautiful. From Rachel Green's iconic hair, to her America's Sweetheart image, to her Aveeno campaigns about healthy, natural skin. And her face in recent years, look, it is still beautiful, but it is different, and people have noticed. Fans on Reddit and Bored Panda have been observing that her face has looked noticeably leaner around the cheeks in recent years. Some netizens suspect mild buccal fat removal, though she has never confirmed any procedure beyond skincare and laser treatments, and her fans have pushed back strongly on the speculation, many saying it is simply ageism, that people are incapable of accepting that a woman in her 50s just looks different than she did in her 20s, and that does not require a surgical explanation. And honestly, that is a completely valid point too, because one of the things this whole conversation can accidentally do is make normal, natural aging look like something that needs to be explained, like something went wrong. And it did not. Sometimes faces just change. Sometimes that is just life. And we land at number 1, Angelina Jolie, who is perhaps the person whose face has been most analyzed, most discussed, most dissected in the history of celebrity culture. And for decades, her cheekbones have been considered among the most striking in the world. Some fans have long wondered if those cheekbones got some surgical help along the way. Dr. Vi Sharma stated publicly that Angelina's famously defined cheekbones and jawline are often attributed to buccal fat removal by people in the aesthetic community, and some clinics have even begun using her face as an example of what this procedure can look like. She has denied doing any work to her face, and many fans and many doctors believe she is simply one of those extraordinarily rare people whose bone structure is genuinely that remarkable without any surgical help. Bored Panda noted that fans long admired her bone structure, but some believe her sharply contoured cheeks were enhanced later in life. And comments underneath the comparison photos are split right down the middle, half saying, nah, she's always looked like this, and half saying the specific change in her mid-face over recent years tells a different story. What makes her the number 1 on this list is not because she is the worst case or the most obvious case. She is number 1 because she represents something bigger. She represents the question that is at the heart of this entire video. What is Hollywood doing to our ability to recognize a natural face when we see one? When even Angelina Jolie, a woman with some of the most genetically extraordinary features in the world, gets put on a buccal fat removal list by the internet, it tells you how thoroughly this procedure has changed the way we look at faces. We have trained ourselves to spot the absence of something, to notice when the cushioning is gone, and that awareness itself is the legacy of this trend. Okay, so here's what I want you to actually take away from all of this, because this is not just a celebrity gossip conversation. It is genuinely not. This is about what happens to regular women and regular men who look at these red carpets and these magazine covers and these Instagram grids and internalize what they see as a standard to reach. Dr. Rod Rohrich, a board-certified plastic surgeon, said recently, "I see it a lot in patients who had this done when they were young and now look much older than they are, as their face is completely depleted." And another surgeon told Real Self that he recently had a patient, a Hollywood figure, who had this procedure just 1 year ago and is already, quote, distraught because he looks 10 years older. 1 year later, not 21. And here's the thing that changes everything once you understand it. The buccal fat pad is not just filler in your cheeks. It is structural. It sits between specific muscles and it acts like a little internal cushion that supports the whole mid-face from inside. When it is removed, those muscles no longer have their support. And as the face continues to naturally age and lose collagen and volume over the years, the area where that fat used to be becomes more and more visible, more and more depleted. And by the time a person is in their 40s and 50s, which is when most people start worrying about aging anyway, the face has lost not just the natural age-related volume, but also the fat that was supposed to be the last line of defense. The fix, the fat grafting reversal that Beverly Hills surgeons are quietly doing on regretful patients right now in 2026, costs 3 times the original procedure. It requires harvesting fat from the abdomen or thighs, and it still may not fully restore what was there because the original structure was unique and permanent. Thousands of women in their 20s and 30s are booking this right now, today, because they saw a celebrity's face and a doctor said yes. And those women deserve to know what we know, that their face fat is not a flaw. It is their future. It is the cushioning that is going to keep them looking alive and warm and like themselves when everything else naturally starts to shift. And removing it is borrowing against something you cannot pay back. And all of it traces back to the same thing. A moment in Hollywood where an algorithm decided what beautiful looks like, where a sharp, hollow, angular face became the standard, and where an entire industry of talented, accomplished, genuinely lovely people decided to chase that standard permanently. And what we are seeing in 2026 is the long-term reality of those decisions. Your face is not a problem. The softness, the roundness, the fullness, that is not something that needs to be fixed. That is something that is going to matter more and more as the years go on. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest thing that came out of all of this is that in 2026, more and more people are starting to understand that. The trend is slowing, the conversation is changing, and the faces we grew up loving, we miss them. We really, genuinely do. If this made you see these Hollywood faces a little differently, hit subscribe. I have got more stories just like this coming every week that you will not want to miss.